Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV learning program. My name is Benon. I will be taking Senior 1 students. Dear students, I'm very happy to be with you. So, as you know, we are going to study a lesson from biology. And biology is the study of life. Everything we do is possible because we have life. Without life, it's impossible. So, from there, I request you to have your pen and a book. I also request you to pay attention and follow all the steps of the lesson. In addition to that, I request you to actively participate in this lesson by following all the steps of the lesson so that at the end of the lesson, you will be able to do the homework which I will give you to test your level of understanding. Dear students, our lesson is from Unit 1, which is Biodiversity and Classification. And the lesson is biodiversity. Allow me ask you this question. What do you understand when you hear the term biodiversity? When the teacher asks you, when the teacher talks about biodiversity, what do you understand? Excellent. When we talk about biodiversity, it is a variety of plant and animal life in the world or in a particular habitat. Biodiversity is a variety of plant and animal life in the world or in a particular habitat. Meaning, when we talk about biodiversity, we mean or we talk about different plants and animals in the world or in a particular habitat. Remember, a habitat is a place where organisms live. Take an example. In your home village where you live, we have different plants and animals. Maybe let me talk about some of the animals I find in my home place. There are different cows, goats, sheep, chicken, rabbits, dogs, and cats. Those are different animals. In addition to that, we find there different plants, those which are edible or those which we can eat, and others which we don't eat. So that makes biodiversity of my home place. Biodiversity is typically a measure of variation of genetic species in an ecosystem level. Terrestrial biodiversity is usually greater near the equator. Do you know the equator? The line which divides the world into two equal parts because of the climate and productivity. The climate is good, soils are good. That means there is a lot of production. In that case, there is a lot of plants and animals. Dear students, here is the diagram of biodiversity. You can see this diagram is showing different plants and animals. Like you see here, we have flowering plants. You can see we have different trees. We have non-flowering plants. We have birds, we have fish, mammals, reptiles, insects, and fungi. So this one is showing different organisms living in a habitat. So that is what we call biodiversity. When we are talking about biodiversity, there are 3 types of biodiversity. Dear students, do you know these types of biodiversity? We have what we call diversity of species. We have what we call diversity of ecosystem. We also have what we call diversity of genes. When we talk about species, do you know what it means? When I say define the term species, do you know what it means? Species means the group of organisms which can interbreed to produce a fertile offspring. That means organisms of the same species are able to produce and give a fertile offspring. The offspring will be able to grow and also produce other species. Like you see in this diagram, we have a variety of species in a given area. You can see these are organisms of different species. Then from there, we also have what we call diversity of ecosystem. When we talk about ecosystem, do you understand what it means? Ecosystem is a community of living and non-living organisms interacting. Let us say with living organisms, we talk about plants and animals. Let us say living organisms, we have plants and animals. Then, with non-living part of the ecosystem, we have air, we can have water, we can also have land, and so on. So here, this is what we call biotic, and this is what we call abiotic. And these can interact. This is what we call ecosystem, whereby living organisms interact with physical environment. How do they interact? Take an example. Plants and animals need oxygen. Remember, oxygen is found in air. Plants and animals need water. Because, remember, the biggest percentage of organisms is water. In addition to that, plants and animals need land for different functions. So that kind of interaction is what we call ecosystem. We have what we call terrestrial ecosystem, whereby organisms are found on land. We have marine ecosystem, where we talk about organisms which live in sea and ocean. And then we have aquatic ecosystem, where we talk about organisms which live in freshwater bodies like lakes. Then from there, you can see we have different habitats or ecosystems, and we have different organisms there. Then the third one is the diversity of genes. A gene is a basic unit of heredity. When we talk about heredity, we mean the transfer of traits from parents to offspring. During reproduction, there are some genes we get from our parents, and those genes are responsible for determining characteristics in our body. So we have a variety of genetic makeup within different species. Like you see here, we have genetic diversity, which is about the differences in DNA among individuals. Organisms have what we call DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Then we have species diversity, where we talk about organisms of different species. And then we have ecosystem diversity, where we have a variety of habitats, ecosystems, and communities. Dear students, like you see, here we have different organisms which make our biodiversity. We have vertebrates, where we talk about mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Then we have invertebrates, where we can talk about insects, mollusks, crustaceans, and other animals. Then we also talk about plants. Like with plants, we talk about flowering plants. We also talk about non-flowering plants. Now that we have understood the term biodiversity, we have talked about 3 types of biodiversity. Allow me ask you this question. What are the uses of biodiversity? Who can give different functions or use of biodiversity? Here is the answer. Humans derive many direct and indirect benefits from living world. Biodiversity is the source of food. Remember, we have talked about plants and animals when we were defining the term biodiversity. Some animals get food from plants, and some animals get food from other animals, meaning biodiversity can be used as the source of food, the source of medicine, the source of pharmaceutical drugs, the source of fiber, the source of rubber. Remember, rubber can come from different trees, and this rubber is a polymer or a largest substance which can be produced by different plants. We can use rubber to make gloves. I'm sure when you go to the hospital, you see medical doctors putting on gloves. Those are made from rubber. Then car tires can be made from rubber. Some clothes can be made from rubber, and toys used by young babies can also be made from rubber. Then we also have timber, which can be a very good source of biodiversity. Why? Because you know, in biodiversity, we talk about plants. We talk about trees, and trees can be a very good source of firewood as well as timber. So biodiversity is very important because it provides different things which are needed by organisms. Source of food and improved varieties. Let us say biodiversity is of use to modern agriculture in 3 ways. One, as a source of new crops, because if we are talking about different plants and animals, that means they can be a good source of new crops, as a source of material for breeding and improved varieties, as a source of new biodegradable pesticides. So it means biodiversity, or plants and animals we are talking about, can be used as the good source of food. Of the several different species of edible plants, less than 20 plant species are cultivated to produce about 85% of the world's food. Take an example. When you talk about wheat, corn, and rice, these are 3 major carbohydrate crops, and they provide a biggest percentage of food to different people. Remember, when we eat wheat, corn, and rice, those are good sources of energy. Energy which is needed by our body, because when we have energy, we are able to perform different functions, like moving from one place to another. Our muscles are able to contract and relax. Our eyes are able to open and close. Our heart is able to contract and relax because of energy. So energy is very important to our body. Drugs and medicine. Biodiversity is a rich source of substances with therapeutic properties. For example, plants derived from substances developed into valuable drugs like morphine, which is used as analgesic. These are very important. And then quinine is used for the treatment of malaria. So some medicines come from plants we find in our environment. This is a very good example of what we call cinchona tree, which produces medicine for malaria. This tree is a very good source of quinine, which is very important for treatment of malaria. Some people commonly say it is called quinine. So that is a very good example of the plant we find in the environment, which can be used as the good source of medicine. Then we have aesthetic and cultural benefits. Biodiversity has different plants and animals, so those can be used for beauty and cultural benefits. When we talk about aesthetic, that is about beauty. Biodiversity has a great aesthetic value because in our environment, where we have different plants and animals, we see the beauty of nature. These aesthetic rewards include ecotourism, bird watching, wildlife, pet keeping, and gardening. Throughout the human history, people have related biodiversity to the very existence of human through culture and religious beliefs. Here, when we see the nature or the beauty of our environment, remember we have there different plants. Some plants have flowers and leaves, which can be used for decoration. Some of these plants have a very good scent or smell, which is needed by different organisms. And then some of these plants and animals can be used in different cultural beliefs. This is a very good example of ecotourism in Rwanda. You can see here we have different plants, different trees, and then these are tourists. They are trying to observe different birds, which are very important. And this is a very good and important function of the country because it generates income or economy to the country. Then we have ecosystem services. Biodiversity is essential for maintenance and sustainable utilization of goods and services. Here we can talk about gaseous composition of the atmosphere. Remember, atmosphere has air, and this air has different gases like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and rare gases. These plants and animals we talk about produce different gases. Example, plants produce oxygen, which is needed by animals. Animals produce carbon dioxide, which is needed by plants. Remember, plants need carbon dioxide to use it in the process of photosynthesis. So there is gaseous composition of the atmosphere, and these gases come from different plants and animals. Climate control by forests. Remember, forests are very important because in forests we find there are different plants and trees which provide oxygen and consume carbon dioxide. Oceanic systems, natural pest control, pollination of plants by insects and birds. Remember, insects and birds are good and important sources, or they can be used for pollination. Then we have formation and protection of soil. This is another important function of plants and animals. Then we have purification of water, and then nutrient cycling. Remember, when we talk about nutrient cycle, we can think of nitrogen cycle, we can think of carbon cycle, we can talk about water cycle. All those are different nutrients which are needed by organisms. So ecosystem is important because it provides different nutrients or requirements which are needed by organisms. Here is a diagram which is trying to show the mechanism of pollination. Here you see we have a flower. This flower has different parts, like these are anthers, this is the stigma, and then you see we have sepals and petals. Now, in the process of pollination, remember we talk about the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. Now, you see here we have pollen which are produced by anthers, and they are transferred by insects like bees from anther to stigma. This is what we call pollination. So the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is what we call pollination. Dear students, before we end our lesson today, let us make a quick review of our lesson. We have defined biodiversity, and we have talked about plants and animals living in the environment. Then we have also talked about the importance of biodiversity in terms of providing food to different organisms, in terms of providing medicine, in terms of tourism, in terms of pollination, and other important functions needed by different animals and plants. Remember, we have said that animals can depend on other animals for food. Animals can also depend on other plants for food. So this is very important. And when environment has different plants and animals, that becomes a very big advantage because there is what we call diversity. Then we have also talked about different types of biodiversity, where we have talked about genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Now, before we end our lesson today, this is the homework to test your level of understanding. Question number 1. Define the term biodiversity. Question number 2. Explain 3 different types of biodiversity. Question number 3. How is the existence of different plants and animals very important? Question number 4. Explain the following terms commonly used while referring to biodiversity. We have what we call ecotourism. You can explain the term pollination. You can explain the term wildlife. You can explain the term pollution. Dear students, I request you to do this homework to test your level of understanding. In addition to that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you because of your active participation in the lesson. Dear students, enjoy the rest of the day and stay safe.